Want to create your own tabletop RPG without breaking the bank? Then you've come to the right place. Welcome to the UGLI Games YouTube channel. My name is Justin, and whether or not it's your first time here or you're a regular, I'm happy to have you. So stick around and hang out with me for just a little bit as we dive into today's video. The software you need to make your TTRPG for cheap. First off, I just gotta say that this is all relative. One person's cheap can be another person's expensive. Basically, what I was looking to create here when I wrote this list was the next step up from one of our first videos, the software you need to create your TTRPG for free. That being said, this list will contain both free and cheap software that I think you should use in the creation of your game. If you have a resource that you think I've overlooked or missed, I'd love to hear your further recommendations. Alright, we're going to be chopping these software up into two categories, pre-production and production. It should also be noted that I'm going to be keeping track of what we spend as we go, and I'm going to see if we can stick to a $200 recommended limit. We'll take the free option when available, but spend the money where I believe it really counts. Okay, let's get started with pre-production. And starting out pre-production is Libra Office. This is a rather powerful, completely free word processor and has been an absolute dream for every project that I've worked on in the last 3 or so years. It is a phenomenal tool for planning, writing, and producing anything, be it working out a system for your game, making a marketing plan, or even writing the official rulebook. It's super easy to use, it's completely and utterly free, which these days is a beautiful thing. It's also open source, so you can customize it if you've got the skills and the vision for it. I like to think of it as a slightly older version of Microsoft Word, but it really does everything that I've ever needed it to do in the process of creating my various projects. Now the cons. I'm completely biased, don't get me wrong, but I really don't see any cons with LibreOffice. It's a well put together software that has done everything I've ever asked of it, plus more. And that's that. LibreOffice brings us to a whopping recommended and all-out price of nothing at all. Pretty good start. Next up, we have none other than Milanote. Milanote is a visual organization tool where you create boards, and within these boards you can put images, titles, notes, you can even draw within the app. It's really a very cool little digital note board for doing much the same thing as LibreOffice, but in a much more relaxed visual format. Where LibreOffice is where you're going to go for planning and producing, Milanote is strictly going to be for planning. My favorite aspect of the site is the visual organization. I don't know about you, but it's really something that just kind of works with my way of thinking. I love being able to look at each idea and see how they connect with each other. It's super useful for the way that I work and has led me to making connections that I really don't think I would have gotten without seeing certain elements in a space next to each other. Plus, you have real-time editing, so if you're collaborating, it's a quick and easy place to create boards of inspiration, planning, and more. Now the cons. There is a limitation on the amount that you can add onto a board, but if it's just for one project, it really shouldn't be an issue. They give you 100 posts, I believe, and each one can hold a lot of information. I find that when I run out of space, I'm generally at a point where I can clean up the board a bit and get some of that back. I don't recommend paying for the service until you know that you need to, as I've used it for multiple years now and I'm still using the free option. But if you know you'll need a lot of space, Milanote will cost you about $9.99 per month or $120 per year. That brings our recommended price to $0 and our all-out price to $120. AnyDice. AnyDice is a probability calculator based around a staple of the TTRPG industry, dice. This site is super useful for the early stages of your game when you're thinking of an outcome mechanic, if it's a dice-based game that is, or deciding exactly what is possible when a player rolls a set of die in your game, and how you can use that to better it. Really, it's very cool. You just have to type in a set number of dice and it'll tell you tons of information that'll impact the dice mechanic of your game. Now the cons. I mean, none, really. It's only got the one function, but it gives invaluable information and is just kind of a rad site. Seeing as how Any Dice doesn't have a paid option, we're still at $0 recommended and $120 all out. The current TTRPG market. Make sure that you're checking in on what is out there in the current indie market. I know some people come from a purist view where they don't want their vision poisoned by other folks' work, but I'll say what's true for every form of art. You have to know the rules that are out there before you can break them and make your own. For writing, that means reading a lot. And what we're doing is writing systems, so we should probably read a couple as well. Not only does this show you things that you want to include in your game, it importantly shows you that things that you don't want to include in your game. And at the end of the day, you'll be supporting indie artists by sending them a few bucks. Two of the biggest sites that I know are itch.io and DriveThruRPG. A lot of projects on itch are pay what you want, so if you're low on funds at the moment, I say pay what you can now and go back when you can afford to support them more later. I will also note that for some systems there are places online to find their rulebooks and other information for free, so those are some great options for seeing what's out there, the different systems that exist and the formats that people choose to publish in. Just give your system of choice a Google and see what's out there. Cons. For cons, I'll say that itch.io, while it has a lot of content, is very much not made for TTRPG content. So finding quality work can be a bit difficult, but I found some charming systems on there. Also, it's just time consuming in general to read all these books, so skim until you get inspired and return when you've put your ideas down on paper or in your place of choice. With the free options out there and going with a few purchases, let's tack on $25 to the recommended price for a total of $25. And for our all-out price, we'll add on $50 for a couple larger and a couple smaller projects, for a total of $170. Discord. Discord is a free communication platform with a pretty great video and audio call feature, as well as a very basic document storing capacity. This is a great service if you're collaborating on a game with others, as it gives you a home base to put all your thoughts and information. Discord is a very popular service, and as such is rather user-friendly and feature-rich. Not only that, but it can also act as a great repository for documents and information. Like most of the others, there's a paid version called Nitro, but the free version is perfectly viable. I believe Nitro just adds aesthetics like emojis and allowance of posting larger files. Either way, this will not really be needed unless you have a really large product. If you do, 50 megabyte files get opened up for $2.99 per month and 500 megabytes for $9.99 per month. That being said, it looks like Discord is going to add nothing to our recommended price point, so it stays at a $25 and our all-out price goes up to $290. For the cons, I will say, in my first version, I used Discord a lot more than I currently do. I use Discord more for talking with collaborators rather than storing information, though it does have those capabilities. That being said, it looks like Discord is going to add nothing to our recommended price point, so it stays at $25, and our all-out price goes up to $290. And that's it for the pre-production portion of this video. Thanks for making it this far. If you've made it this far, I'll say this. Writing and making your system doesn't require a budget at all. The $25 is a recommendation to look at things outside of yourself, but in general, making the thing up is up to you. You can do it on your time and without spending much at all. Things do tend to change a bit when you get to the production phase, though. Production. Production can be what you want it to be. You just have to ask yourself a few questions. Are you looking to design documents or just systems? If you want to release just plain text documents, that is completely valid. Not every project requires a custom font or a fully designed book, but if you've got a passion for page layout, for graphic design, for illustration, or anything like that, you might want to look into our next entry, the Affinity Suite. The Affinity Suite, in my head, is the Adobe alternative, with its 3 interconnected versions called Affinity Publisher, Designer, and Photo. Affinity Publisher. This is a publishing software used to create simple to professional grade documents. For our purposes, we would be making things like rulebooks, character sheets, and marketing materials. Affinity Designer. This is a great graphic design software, perfect for creating illustrations, assets, icons, and maps, etc. I can speak less about Photo because I just purchased it today. I'd say you really only need the other 2 at first, and this one can be available to you if you ever happen to have the extra funds. It can only help your workflow, though it might not be entirely necessary for most small projects. The cons. There is a definite learning curve, but I have looked up maybe 2 tutorials ever and have intuitively figured out how to do a lot of really cool things. Now, don't judge the capabilities of the software by what I've created. I'm not a designer by trade, just a hobbyist. That being said, here's a bit of what I've created with the Affinity Publisher and Designer. This is where we come to the price of these software. Each software is going to be a devastatingly cheap $70 and insanely $35 as of this recording, $38 with tax. That being said, the recommended total goes from $25 to $165 using the $70 price point for Affinity Publisher and Designer, and the all-in total goes from $290 to $500 for all 3. When it comes to this stuff, I just feel like I need to say, wait until you have enough money for each software before you go and buy all 3. Buy one at a time so you're learning as you go and you don't get overwhelmed. I know that if I bought all 3 at once, I would probably get overwhelmed and never pick any of them back up. PDF Escape is my go-to place to create editable forms. This is going to be useful when making character sheets editable and stitching together multiple PDFs for playtests. There's also a bunch of other functions that this site has, but these are the 2 main uses that I've found. Not to mention, it is completely free, and you can use it without creating an account. Cons. To be honest, using PDF Escape is not the easiest experience, but it does get the job done better than any alternatives that I know of. That being said, if you know of any better resources, I would love to hear them. Google Forms. Speaking of character sheets, here's a little hack. Ever heard of Google Forms? It's a, form creating service, but you can actually use it as a character sheet for your early playtests before you make an official one. If you stay creative, you can make short answer sections for things like name and class, and longer answer sections for things like abilities or spells. You can even turn the sections traditionally used for ratings of 1 to 10 and use them to track spells or even health, depending on the system. Check out the various things that you can do and try to stay creative. I will also note that this method requires that they do not submit the form. They need to just keep it on the tab in front of them so that it works. But that being said, this is probably best for one-shots. Google Forms is completely free, so our recommended price is staying at $165 and our all-out price is staying at $500 for the moment. Procreate. Procreate is a professional-grade digital art app for iPad. Procreate can be used for pre-production as well, but I have mostly found it useful in the production phase to do character art or art for inside the book, or even for marketing purposes. Cons. One con is that art in general kind of has a steep learning curve, but if you just pick a style or you just kind of keep going and find your style, you'll figure it out. Also, you kind of have to have an iPad for this, so that's, a thing. But I will say, I have also had Android tablets as well, and the ArtFlow app can do a lot of the same things and is simple to use. Procreate will add $10 to the recommended price point, making it $175, and the all-out price is going up to $510. Albear Rodeo. Albear Rodeo is a virtual tabletop. This is going to be useful mostly when you're testing the game and playing with people online. Albear has a lot of fun features like digital dice rolling, the ability to upload your tokens and maps, and even has an initiative tracker. It does all of this while being pretty easy to use and completely free. Albear adds nothing to our price, so we still have a $175 to $510 split. Wix. As far as the internet goes, you need a simple place for people to go and find you, and you can do that with Wix. And you can do it completely free. They have AI assistance with building your site, but I recommend finding a template and making it your own. You can really create some nice sites if you spend some time with them. And don't let them fool you. You can totally make sites for free, though they try to push the paid option, of course. If you do choose to purchase a domain, though, it will run you around $17 a month for the cheapest option, up to a lot more. Doing the math, that keeps our recommended price at $175 and our all-out price at $704. The cons. Wix offers the ability to create free sites, but you don't really get to pick your domain. So, when it comes to your URL, what I always do is just use a URL shortener. It's going to make it look a little nicer and easier to post places. Also, their drag and drop web design workflow has a learning curve as well, but that's about it. You'll find this whole activity of creating a TTRPG is just a learning curve in TTRPG form. So you'd better like learning new systems. Thanks for those who are watching, and I wanted to leave you all with a little look at what is coming in the future from UGLI Games. Alright, that's that. As for the next video that I'm making, I'm working on the next video in the Make a TTRPG with Me series, but would love to hear your other thoughts on what you might want to see next. Also, a big thanks to my patrons. If you want these videos and behind-the-scenes stuff about UGLI Games projects and want them early, then you can become a Patreon too. Link is in the description, along with links to everything that I've talked about today. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a good day, and as always, stay ugly.